Welcome to the Moviegoers Society podcast brought to you by Nerdtropolis. I'm your host, Sean Tajipour, the mayor of Nerdtropolis, and joining me is my totally awesome co-host, Drew Munhausen, the professional media and movie mastermind. Hey, Drew.
Hey there. Thanks for having me. That was, there's going to be a lot of turtle puns here, aren't there?
Maybe we'll just leave it at that. We don't want to annoy anyone. But welcome to the Moviegoers Society podcast, where we dive into the world of cinema, exploring everything from beloved classics to the latest blockbusters. And we're in episode 4 now, and we're gonna dive into, I don't know, for me, a highly anticipated film, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem. I'm excited for watching this. I might need to watch it again. I'm excited for this podcast. I told you since I think we started this, I'm excited for this movie.
Yeah, I feel like you've been talking about this since before we even started this podcast. This was one early in the summer that you were looking forward to. I know you're a big turtle guy, which I like. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I do not have the same level of love and nostalgia for them as you have, but I watch all the turtle stuff when they have new movies and things. I don't have the same attachment to it. So the conversation around it should be interesting coming with you, who's a true diehard fan.
Yeah, I grew up with Ninja Turtle Pampers pretty much. So. But before we get into Mutant Mayhem, we want to make sure that you can connect with us online. You can find me on almost every single social media platform at Sean Taj. You can find us on at Nerdtropolis on all the platforms. And don't forget to visit nerd-tropolis.com for your daily dose of movie news, reviews, interviews, and trailers. And Drew, where can they find you where you're not contributing to Nerdtropolis?
You can find me everywhere at Drew Munhausen on Twitter or X or Blue Sky or any of all those social medias, and also over at Fresh Out the Podcast, where me and my co-hosts Gary and Jahan, we talk about all the other stuff other than movies. We talk about video games and tabletop games and all that fun stuff. But this is the place to find me talking in depth all about the movies.
Yeah. Also, don't forget to catch our previous episodes of the Moviegoer Society. This is episode 4 now. So you got 3 to catch up on. So please tune in, and also tune into my podcast, Nerdtropolis Mayor Presents, where I interview a bunch of actors and directors. And my latest interview that is just up is with Orlando Jones. And you may know him from Mad TV, Evolution, Drumline, and even American Gods, and so much more. So that's a great one to watch or listen to. But just check that out on the Nerdtropolis Podcast Network.
I really like the one you did a highlight from the interview, talking about like young up and coming comedians and what to do. And he talked about the importance of getting out there and being on stage and really putting yourself out there. And it seemed like really good advice. And he seemed like a really fun guy to talk to.
Had a great time with Orlando Jones. I just loved giving him my commentary on his film that he was doing. And then he was also giving great advice. I wanted to ask one of my last questions, advice for comedians and writers. And you could go to my Instagram at Sean Taj and watch that clip. It is a powerful clip, I think so. Very motivating, inspirational. And anyone that wants to get into the entertainment business, go watch that short clip. It is a good blueprint of how to get started. But Drew, besides Mutant Mayhem, you went out and watched Meg 2. Is that correct?
I did. I went and saw Meg 2, which I keep wanting to call it The Meg 2, but worth noting, the first movie was The Meg. This one, they cut out the. It is just Meg 2, The Trench. There's no The Meg 2. I know it's weird. It's just, I was writing a review and every time I wanted to type The Meg 2, but there's no The.
I wanted to do the same thing. I was always putting the in the front, but your full review is on the site. But I want to know what made you want to go see it.
Yeah, it's a loaded question, Sean. I don't know. Why do I do this to myself? So this is actually kind of a funny story. Remember when Movie Pass was a thing?
Yeah.
So I had Movie Pass way back when, and then Movie Pass went under and nothing worked anymore, and so I needed that fix because I had gotten so used to using that subscription service to go see movies all the time, and so I subscribed to AMC A-List back in 2018, and The Meg was the first movie that I went and saw with my AMC A-List account. I specifically remember that. I saw it in an IMAX theater, or Limax, truly. But I went and saw it, and it was okay. It wasn't that great, but I saw it. I just wanted to go and use that subscription, and I saw it. So I've seen the first one. The second one, the first one was silly. It had some silly moments, and it was enough. I'm like, yeah, I can go for round two with Jason Statham and
Is the
some
first
giant
one
sharks.
rated R or this is a PG-13 films? What are these?
I couldn't tell you. I'm going to assume the second one is PG-13 because there was a surprising amount of kids in the screening that I was at. Like there were young people, 12-year-olds, I'd say, like with their parents seeing. So that I thought that was pretty surprising.
Yeah, the first one's PG-13. I just looked it up. Yeah, PG-13 for both of them. So I guess maybe it's toned down a little bit on the craziness on blood, maybe.
There's still some violence, I guess, but I mean, there's only so much realism in a gigantic shark just inhaling people. I guess it's not that visceral. There's a few moments.
So tell us what was the most maybe surprising part of this film.
I think the most surprising part of this film was kind of how boring it was. Like I hate to be that way, but I mean, okay, nobody's expecting this movie to be an award-winning film. Nobody's expecting prestige cinema when you see Meg 2. All right, I get that. But there's a lot of exposition at the beginning, and then them going down into the Mariana Trench, and it's dark, and it's a lot about the science and the getting into it, and finding underwater facilities and trying to set up this intrigue, and none of that worked for me. I'm like, none of this is interesting. I just want to see Jason Statham fighting giant sharks. That's what I'm here for. And the movie kind of drags on. It has an almost 2-hour runtime, and it's probably not until about the last 30 minutes or so that it finally amps up with multiple Megs, attacking people and the action that you go to these movies wanting to see with that kind of B movie feel. Like that's what I wanted for the whole thing. You want it to be an almost so bad it's good kind of movie. Like you don't go into it expecting it to be actually good, but you want it to be so bad that it's good. And this is just so bad that it's not very good. It
seems like the action, comes so late, it's not worth seeing. But let's do this. Let's pretend you're Jason Statham. All right. Let's pretend you're the star of the movie.
Okay.
Sell this movie to the audience.
Oh God. I mean, giant sharks. That's what you hinge it upon. You talk about the giant sharks. You probably bury the fact that the giant sharks kind of get sidelined for the whole middle portion of the film until the last act. But you sell it on, I mean, I'm looking at the poster and it's Jason Statham on a jet ski with a giant Meg coming out of the water behind him. And he's holding one of these harpoons that he makes with bombs attached to him. That is in the movie. This scene does happen, and it's great when it happens. You just got to wade through an hour and a half of, yada yada to get to it. When that last third is funny and action packed, and it gives you what you want. It's just you got to wade through the, no pun intended, the trenches to get there. So I don't want to sit here and it's like this movie's terrible or whatever, because there's some fun to be had. It's just you gotta be patient to get to it.
Yeah, and it seems like it did really well. I'm looking at box office numbers right now, and the Meg 2, The Trench, number 2 over the weekend, brought in $30 million. $30 million.
This has shocked me. I feel like I haven't seen that much marketing for Meg 2 until maybe the past week or so. Like it shocked me when I saw that this movie was coming out this weekend. I just kind of feel like it had been buried. I wasn't really looking forward to it. There wasn't a Houston press screening or anything like that for this one, which typically doesn't bode well for a movie's quality. There's of course exceptions to the rule, but I figured that Barbie, with the run that it's on, was going to come in number 1 again. And then I figured it would be Turtles. And then I figured maybe Meg 2 after that, or Oppenheimer. Seeing Meg 2 come in at number 2 at the box office behind Barbie this weekend has truly left me pretty astonished. But I guess I underestimate the amount that general audiences like to go see giant CG sharks. So what do I know?
Yeah, I was surprised too. Like we mentioned, Barbie #1, bringing in $53 million, putting it in the $1 billion club, and which is amazing. Tons of amazing stuff this movie has done. Quite the accomplishment for Warner Brothers. And Meg 2 is also a Warner Brothers film. So Warner Brothers has the top 2 films of the weekend, bringing in about $83 million over the weekend. That's pretty impressive.
It's also worth noting that Meg 2 has a lot of Chinese stars in it. The first one did as well. So I think the Meg movies do well overseas. Because I'm looking now and it's saying that
international
worldwide, it's made almost 150 million and on a budget of 130. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, look at international numbers. It's about 110 plus.
That being said, going back to Barbie and the amount of money that it's made and finally crossing $1 billion, with as quickly as it's done that, I kind of thought when Super Mario Brothers came out earlier this year and as well as it was doing at the box office, that nothing else this year was going to surpass that. And now I think it might be almost safe to say Barbie might end up being the highest grossing movie of the year of 2023. I think that Barbie could surpass Super Mario Brothers and end up being, it might be the Top Gun Maverick of this year. Like it might gross in that same range and be the highest grossing movie of 2023. Remains to be seen. But I mean, you and I've talked about it and we've looked at the box office, or I looked at the upcoming slate, and I just don't see anything surpassing that at this point.
No, but Warner Brothers has another movie coming out in August. You got Blue Beetle. So that'll be really interesting to see where that sits when it opens up with their other Warner Brother films like The Meg and Barbie, and see how everyone sits in the box office. We said Oppenheimer at #3 at what, 28 million. And then sadly, Mutant Mayhem opened up with about what, 40, maybe 40 worldwide, 51 million worldwide, which I thought was pretty low. And it's sad that this movie came in at #4. As we get to talking about this movie really soon, this I was disappointed because it's a great movie.
I'm just surprised. It's a family friendly film. This is a anticipated film that parents could take kids to. It's appropriate for kids. Kids could enjoy it. And I guess they did not have interest in this in the same way that they did for Super Mario Brothers. I don't know. And it's sad because there's such a cool animation style on display here, and a lot, we'll get into it. I want to throw that to you because I feel like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is your baby, and I want you to take that one and run with it.
Well, look, we'll just depart the deep seas and we'll jump into the sewers now. All right. And we'll just go straight into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. Now is the time. And as I mentioned previously on one of our podcasts, I got to go to San Diego Comic-Con, watch the first 20 minutes with the director and with Kevin Eastman, the co-creator of the Turtles. And I loved it. I felt emotional watching it with a bunch of fans. I had my Donatello mask on that they gave the audience. You get to pick which mask you want. And I was like, I want Donatello, please. Thank you. I loved it. So my expectations going in was super high. And after the movie was done, I was extremely satisfied. And I have to say, I was so visually impressed by this movie. First of all, it's very unique. It's an imperfect, perfect art style to me. And it sets it apart from other animated films like Spider-Verse. I actually like this animation better than Spider-Verse. It delivers a fresh and engaging experience for Turtle fans. It's so different, and it's much more crisp than Spider-Verse. I felt like that movie was a little too blurry at times for me, and that's why I really like this art form much better.
There's a really good article on the New York Times that I actually read a few days ago that I wanted to bring up here because they kind of made the point where Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, when it came out, kind of opened the door because it had such a unique animation style, and it really opened the door for creators and animators to take some liberties with animation and do some different things. And we saw that with the Mitchells versus the Machines, and we even saw that with the most recent Puss in Boots movie, which I haven't watched in full, but my daughter was watching a little bit of it recently, and the animation style in it looked really cool. And I was very surprised by it. It made me feel like I want to watch that movie in full. I just haven't gotten to it yet.
Which you definitely should. I'm going to say that. That Last Wish is really good. The animation's really good. Great story. So do find the time to watch that one.
I've heard good things, but so we've seen some new styles being used, and then Across the Spider-Verse, when it came out, has now the point they made in the article was Across the Spider-Verse has now cemented that you need to do this with animation in order to be successful moving forward. And if you release at this point a more traditional animated movie, a la kind of what we're used to seeing from Pixar and such, that's going to start to feel dated now when comparing it to things like Spider-Verse and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Now, obviously, now as we're seeing with the box office for Turtles, it doesn't necessarily mean like the biggest box office success, but from a critical standpoint, I think Turtles has been reviewed pretty well. I certainly liked it a lot. This is probably my favorite Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles thing that's come out in the past, couple decades, really. I really enjoyed it.
It's awesome. Like, it's really great. What did you think about the art form for Spider-Verse? Like, did you like this one more or less? Like, what do you think about it personally?
Well, first, I mean, this is a cop-out answer, but like, I'm glad we live in a world where we can have both. I guess that being said, I love the Spider-Verse animation style, and it's kind of hard to upend that for me. But that being said, I really admired the animation style used in Turtles that's relies more on the imperfect. Like, there's an explosion and it literally just looks like pencil scribble mark. The smoke is like pencil scribbles, and I don't know, just that kind of rough, almost graffiti-esque style, which Spider-Verse has a little bit of. I feel like that was even heightened here. Sometimes the characters in Turtles almost looked like stop motion animated or claymation. The way they did it was really, really great.
Yeah, it's a refreshing look for sure. And so Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse, I think they had 7 or 8 different art styles. And that's why it takes so long for that movie to be made. And that's why Beyond the Spider-Verse is going to be delayed for a long time, because it takes so much work to do that. But I felt like in Spider-Verse, I was just getting dizzy at times, not knowing what type of action was happening. And then for Mutant Mayhem, they were saying they wanted to do the artwork like a preteen or teenager was scribbling during class and making their art, which this does perfectly. I love it. It's kind of like a New York graffiti vibe with just like teenage artwork, just like scribbling in school, and which I really loved it. And I just thought it works because this is also originally a comic book, and same with Spider-Verse. So like just kind of leaning into that, it was really awesome.
Yeah, that's like the lifeblood of this property, and it's kind of going back to its roots in a way. Yeah, I thought that was the right decision to make with a project like this. We've seen live action, and we've seen the live action and CGI hybrid, and we've seen some fully animated movies, but this one has a special place. Like the quality is just really good. Great.
I was watching, I think it was 2007 when they had the feature film that hit theaters, the TMNT movie. I think it had like Chris Evans in it as Casey Jones, and I forget who else was in it, but that was just like a very CG 3D look. And watching it the other day, I was like, this looks weird to me. For some reason, this movie, Mutant Mayhem, visually just spoke to me, and is really what the Turtles are to me. Just when you see them, it's like the action figures came to life. And that's what I love about it. And just the imagination you have just watching the movie is great. And with this type of art form, you combine it with this soundtrack. This movie rocks with the combination. Trent Reznor and Attica Ross, they were brought on board for this movie, and they knocked it out of the park. I thought the soundtrack and the score, everything put together was just brilliant. With the action-packed scenes and the heartfelt moments, they intertwined this film great.
You even said you were listening to the soundtrack as we got on to record this very podcast. So I know you've been into it. Yeah, it did. You had told me beforehand that was something that stuck out to you, and it did for me as well. I thought the soundtrack was phenomenal for this, and it always means a lot in an animated movie like this. That could be, I feel like sometimes with movies that are geared towards kids, that the soundtracks can be taken for granted depending on the project, and that was not the case here. It felt like. It felt like I don't know if they are or not, but if it felt like Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross are a fan of this property too, like that they're Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fans, and so they put a lot into it.
Yeah, they knew what to do. I think they just knew what the vision was, because I love that this film draws a lot of inspiration from John Hughes films. It's not, there's one scene where it's super obvious. There's one scene where it's super obvious about John Hughes, but I felt like the storytelling and just even with the score, I just felt like I was watching a John Hughes film. It was so strange feeling that. It added depth and relatability to the characters on this very unique journey that I've never seen the Turtles go on. It's a very refreshing origin story. And
but there's some contrast there too, though, because you compare it to a John Hughes film, but then there's also an action scene that's almost taken straight from Park Chan-wook and Old Boy, and there's like a hallway fight scene that's incredible. So like you get both ends of the spectrum with this one. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, the heart is definitely a John Hughes film, and some of the aspects of the soundtrack speak to it as well. When you listen to the soundtrack by itself, you'll notice kind of what they were trying to do, and it's a brilliant soundtrack that I definitely recommend everyone listening to. They did a great job. I mean, I still have it playing in my head as we speak right now.
Now, let me ask you this, because there's a pretty big cast of characters in this one. And I knew, because they, for the marketing campaign for this one, they had a ton of character posters and things with all of these different villain characters. And I couldn't help but think of like, is this going to get messy? And it really doesn't. Like there are Mutant Mayhem is a truly appropriate title because it's a lot of mutants. But they're all really fun and they all get a moment to shine, and they don't take away from the Turtles, who are the true stars of this movie. For some of these characters, I wasn't necessarily familiar with some of the deep arsenal or rogues gallery that they went into here. Are any of these characters like that you're familiar with from before, or that you were happy to see on the big screen? Like, I don't know, is Mondo Gecko a character in Turtles?
Yes,
like,
he
I don't
is.
know.
Yes, he is. And he's a great one. Yeah, so a lot of these characters obviously have been introduced in the cartoon, the comics, toy line, whichever way you got introduced to TMNT. But a lot of the mutants that are in here are really just glorified cameos, which I really like. The focus is really on the Turtles, on Splinter and his relationship with the Turtles, and then April O'Neil and her journey, and then Superfly. And then everyone else is kind of just playing along and kind of popping in and popping out. Really love. I like the fact that Bebop and Rocksteady are in here, but they're barely kind of showcased. They have a few cool moments, but they're kind of put in the back corner, which I'm actually glad, because they could be focused on in a different way. But I thought Ice Cube as Superfly was perfect. And something that you may not know is Giancarlo Esposito plays Baxter Stockman in here. But in the comics, Superfly and Baxter are the same character. But here, in this movie, they made it two separate characters, which I thought it works. So it definitely made sense to do it that way. But I was glad to see kind of Ice Cube doing his thing. I mean, he perfectly balances the toughness and street credibility of this character. It's just really good. Paul Rudd, as you mentioned, as Mondo Gecko is just, I don't know, one of the beloved characters for me. I think Seth Rogen even said he's like, that's one of my favorites. And then I love Jackie Chan as this version of Splinter. Very different than any Splinter that we've gone before. And his voice does work. It takes a while to get used to because it's Jackie Chan, but it introduces a new version of Splinter and it's successful. And there's surprising twists to this character for sure.
Jackie Chan probably gave me the most actual laugh out loud moments in the movie. Just some of his line delivery is so good, and he's like this kind of overbearing dad, and it really worked for these truly teenage turtles. I mean, the teenage is really emphasized here with their, how young and up and coming they are. Their bond was really good, and the young actors that voiced all four of the turtles were all unique in their own way and did really well. So I enjoyed that. And, you mentioned Bebop and Rocksteady, and it's worth noting that Seth Rogen voices Bebop, and Seth Rogen and his producing partner, Evan Goldberg, and their childhood friends, they, produced this movie and helped write the screenplay. And you could tell this was a passion project for them. This is something that they really like. And it kind of has the feel of like, if you look at the cast, it's a lot of like Seth Rogen's friends or people that have been in movies with him before, like Rose Byrne and of course Paul Rudd and so on and so forth. And it almost kind of gives the same feeling as like, not all the movies that Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg are producing is Seth Rogen starring in. Sometimes he's just a producer, but it almost feels like a Happy Madison akin deal where, like, you know how Adam Sandler has his production company and he's in his movies sometimes, but he just like kind of likes to make movies with his friends, and there's parts of it that come off that way, and I mean that in a good way.
It works for this.
These are all people that I think are very funny and that I enjoy a lot.
Yeah, it works this way, where Sandler's way doesn't really work all the time. And these people are actually really talented and stars on their own when it comes to who they're voicing, the voice cast for this movie. The funny thing is Seth is obviously voicing Bebop, and that's the second time he's voicing a warthog. So
that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. That's funny.
Yeah.
And in the end credits, I don't know if you saw, but it did when Paul Rudd's credit comes up, it says an introducing Paul Rudd, like as if he's new to the scene, which just kind of feels like a joke between friends. So that gave me a good laugh. It's rare that something during the credits makes you laugh, and that one got me.
Yeah, I know when everyone heard that Seth Rogen was kind of leading this project, they were like, boo, boo. But I was like, I don't know, if he loves this like IP, he's going to do a great job. And he does. Everyone does a great job. This movie knocks out of the park. But he said the Turtles was a part of his childhood and the reason he took martial arts. So he had a great bonding with the Turtles growing up and was a big part of his childhood. So that's always good when someone gets involved in this. And then obviously we just said he voices Bebop. John Cena's rock steady, but you cannot tell that's John Cena. They obviously do some voice changes on that. So I could barely tell that was John Cena.
Doesn't he produce Seth Rogen? Yeah, he produces The Boys, the TV show, and there's some other things.
He's a great producer. He was, what was that one on AMC that he did as well? It was
Preacher, maybe. That was based on the comic book. Yes. So he's done a lot of these comic book based properties, and you can tell he's into those, and
he's a fan,
helping make those come to life that are truly funny. Like the comedy is done well, and so that's the one thing we didn't touch on. The comedy in this is hysterical. Of all ages can enjoy jokes from this, regardless of what generation of a turtle fan you are, there are jokes for you. It is fabulous. And did you like Ray Fillet? Do you know who that is? I did. Yeah, that's Post Malone, right?
Yeah, that is going to be a fan favorite amongst everyone.
It was a perfect use of Post Malone in this too. Like when I saw he was voicing a character, I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then when you see what the character is and how he acts, I'm like, oh, this is great. This is perfect.
Yeah, I thought everyone was cast great. I really enjoyed just the voice cast of the Turtles and Jackie Chan as Splinter. And I like the split. Like I keep saying, the Splinter they introduced makes so much sense. It's a dad. It is like the most dad-like Splinter we've ever seen, even from his looks when he first meets the Turtles. His visual look is just so hilarious. The early 90s look or something, late 80s, it's just a ridiculous, typical look. It's like kind of reminds me of all the dads from the 80s and 90s for sure.
Oh, I also just want to shout out Ayo Edebiri, who voices April O'Neil in this, who you might know her as Sydney from The Bear, which I just finished the second season of The Bear, which is an excellent show, and she's a standout in it. And she does a great job voicing April O'Neil here and the take on April. It's her introduction to the Turtles and the bond that she forms with them. I really enjoyed her performance as well. I wanted to give her a shout out.
Yeah, this version of April O'Neil is really great. I think kids are going to relate to a lot of the characters in here, especially the Turtles and April, and just anyone going through like their preteen years and teenage years are going to relate to a lot of the stuff they talk about. It's really great. I mean, I loved it. Exceptional performances by everyone. The animation is so strong. The storytelling is so strong. This movie was just everything I wanted. And they set up so much where you can do sequels, but you can also do spinoffs, just like Paramount did with Sonic, where they're doing a Knuckles spinoff. So you could do Rocksteady and Bebop and do a spinoff. And they set so much up with the story. And obviously they teased a lot at the end. We're definitely going to get a sequel that's going to be bigger and better, I feel like. But there's just so much going on. And hopefully we see more Superfly somehow, because I loved Ice Cube in this. I think he was really one of the standouts.
He was a good villain. I thought, and for Superfly, not a Turtles villain I'm overly familiar with, and he was intimidating. And yeah, I liked Superfly as a villain.
We also understood where Superfly was coming from. Like his story is also very heartfelt, and I love the scenes with Jackie Chan as Splinter and Ice Cube as Superfly, because they were connecting on some of the things they believed in, and then It was a very good storytelling. I have to keep saying that. It was really great. And so I got to give this movie 5 out of 5 pizza slices, guys. This movie was so great. We're moving pizza slices now. What about you, Drew?
I'm right there with you. I'm giving this a 4 out of 5. This could go up to a 4.5 out of 5 for me on a rewatch, possibly. It's really good. It's really well done.
How can we get you a 5 out of 5? What would have made it spectacular? What was it missing?
Know.
What's the secret sauce?
Oh, now you're putting me on the spot. I'm
just curious. I got to convert you to like the ultimate turtle fan now. No, I definitely understand. You're probably comparing it to Spider-Verse, was probably ranked a little higher for you.
There's just something so elevated about Spider-Verse and the storytelling they're doing there. And not to say that this isn't, but this feels like a really great comic book arc. Like it feels like straight from the pages of a comic book, and it's really well done and executed. But if there's something they do that really surprises me in the next one, that's the way to get me, is catch me off guard with something. Not to say this one, was like by the numbers. It wasn't, but just you gotta surprise me somehow.
Right.
Like Meg 2, which surprised me in a negative way. Don't do that. Don't surprise me in a negative way and have a movie about giant sharks that's boring. Surprise me in a positive way.
Yeah, this movie is exciting. The action starts almost from the very beginning, and just it's paced very well. It's almost nonstop action if you think about it. There's not much quiet time in this film.
Yeah, I'm still stuck on that star rating now that you asked me that. I don't know how to explain it, Sean. When I watch a movie and I go onto my Letterboxd account and I got to log it and I got to choose my star rating, there's no formula, there's no anything. It's just, how do I feel in my gut at that very moment? And at that moment, I saw Turtles and I said, this is a 4-star out of 5 movie.
I know what was missing. I know now. You know what it is? You didn't have pizza during your movie.
That's true. I didn't. And that could have changed the experience. I don't think I had any snacks during this one. So
that's what it
maybe
was.
That's on me. Maybe that's on me.
No, but definitely everyone, please go watch this movie. Mutant Mayhem is a must watch. Doesn't matter what generation of fan you are. If you grew up with the comics, you grew up with the 80s cartoon, if you grew up with the stuff in the 90s to the early, every generation will love this. I think this is the best combination of everything, and they just delivered just the best thing they could. And I'm excited for the sequel. Hopefully we get some news of that soon, but this movie needs to make some more money for sure.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's drastically underperforming necessarily. It's just that everything else I think is overperforming. So it's just a weird, the box office is such a strange place right now.
No, that's for sure. And I think our next episode is going to be Gran Turismo as I think.
Oh yeah, we will be able to talk about that next week. Yeah, we'll talk Gran Turismo. It's a shame that it got delayed a couple of weeks. I understand why, but yeah, we can talk about that because I don't know that there's even anything else really coming out next week.
No, I think after Gran Turismo, then we have Blue Beetle.
Which you mentioned Blue Beetle earlier. I'm scared for Blue Beetle. Not from a quality standpoint, but from a box office standpoint. I was thinking about it the other day, and we're in a world where The Flash, drastically underperformed. And I know that movie had a lot of other things kind of working against it, but still,
it's doing very well on VOD right now, which is surprising.
Okay.
It's doing really well on VOD. So I don't know what that is about, but yeah, but Warner Brothers is killing it right now. So they might take a couple of hits, but they got a couple big wins.
I just feel like if The Flash, did not surpass expectations at the box office, and you've got Blue Beetle, who's at least people are familiar with the Flash and who the Flash is and what his power set is. Blue Beetle's a character I feel like general audiences are unfamiliar with. It's a lot of newcomers to this cast. I know you've got Susan Sarandon and George Lopez in it, but I just don't know. Well, with a lack of star power and a little known hero, I just don't see this movie making a huge splash at the box office. Like this might do Shazam 2 numbers. I don't know. I'm not trying to be negative on it because I think it looks fun and I hope it is good and it looks good to me, but I don't know, man. I'm trying not to be pessimistic, but we'll have to see.
And you got a Hispanic superhero, so we got to see how the Hispanic audience turns to this, and especially in the different countries. I'm very curious to see the box office numbers in those countries that speak Spanish, and trying to see if they are going to go watch and support this, which I'm sure they will. It's a great character for sure. I'm excited for it. Just DC has had some issues as they transition, but Marvel has had the same issue too. So it has to do with the genre itself as well. There's a shift going on, as we can see with Barbie and Oppenheimer and Meg. So there's just a shift in what people want to watch right now.
It's just weird. DC's just in such a strange place because they've alienated their audience a little bit by saying, "Hey, we're taking a turn. This is where we're moving to." So all the current slate of movies coming out are varying levels of relevant to the DCU overall as a whole. That being said, this is a new hero that we're seeing for the first time that could be, if it's successful, could be incorporated in. So I'll be there opening weekend. I'll be there to see this one. But yeah, we'll have to see.
Yeah, and I want to see what Gran Turismo does internationally, though, because that's also a very big game outside the United States, a big IP and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see how that carries. And I'm excited, Drew. I'm not sure if I told you, but Nissan is going to deliver their brand new GTR to me this week. So I'll be driving it for several days. So I'm definitely going to give my review of the car when we talk Gran Turismo, which is that car is heavily in that movie. So I'm excited to be driving that sports car. It'd be exciting.
Would you be doing a written review for that one, or where can we see?
Yeah, I'll do a written review.
That?
You can just go to westhoustonmuscle.com. That's my car club where I do my car shows, and I put articles on there. But if you follow my socials, I'll be documenting my drive with this car. I drove the GTR before. I love it. It's one of the most iconic, I think, sports cars in automotive history. And it's heavily in Gran Turismo. Nissan is a part of the story of this upcoming movie. So
Orlando Bloom literally plays the marketing rep for Nissan in the movie.
Yeah, I was actually surprised. I didn't know too much about the story, but it's a good watch. It was fun. So we'll talk about that more in our next podcast.
August is the month of Sean, man. You got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Gran Turismo, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and cars. Those are two of your biggest passions ever.
Yeah,
August
and you got Blue Beetle coming up.
Sean.
I'm excited too. So, I mean, a lot of good stuff. August is being good to me so far. But once again, Drew, where can everyone find you?
You can find me at Drew Munhausen on Twitter or over at Fresh Out the Box on Fresh Out the Podcast.
Yeah, follow myself or Nerdtropolis at Sean Taj or at Nerdtropolis. Thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Moviegoers Society. Excited for our next episode and many more to do. But once again, I'm Sean Taj, the mayor of Nerdtropolis, and we will see you at the movies.